Tazria, Parshas Tazria, we're going to start today with the Iturei Torah of Rav Greenberg, Iturei Torah of Rav Aaron Yaakov Greenberg, and even though I studied this as a boy, I haven't opened up the Sefer in many years, but now I found it in Rabbi Mintz's library, so we're going to study a little bit. And first thing he discusses is the first pasuk or the second verse of the portion, Parshas Tazria. Daber al bnei Yisrael, and more, speak to the children of Israel. Isha ki Tazria, a woman who will. Tazria means literally to have seed, but here it means she'll give birth. V'yalda zachar, she gives birth to a male. V'tama shivas yamim. If she gives birth to a male, she'll be tamei, she'll be ritually impure for 7 days. Kimei nidas devosa, like the days of her flow of a nida. If she has a flow from her body, she's titma. So basically, that the Torah is telling us that after a woman gives birth, she's ritually impure. Like the blood that comes out of her is called dam leda. And so that's blood of birthing, and the blood of birthing makes her ritually impure for 7 days. Just like if she has the blood of a menstrual flow, she'd be tamei, biblically speaking, for 7 days. And then, if it will be a girl, she'd be tamei for 14 days. And then afterwards, for a male, there's 33 more days, and in which she's going to be rabbinically tamei. But according to the Torah, it's called dam tahor. That blood after that is ritually pure, not impure. And for a female, 66 days. So now we go to the Iturei Torah, and he's like an anthology of different sources, many beautiful sources. And first source is from the Chasam Sofer, and he quotes Rabbi Simlai. So first of all, one of the most famous teachings of Rabbi Simlai is Rabbi Simlai at the end of Maseches Makos, where Rabbi Simlai says that there are 613 commandments in the Torah. They source in the Talmud for that. Amar Rabbi Simlai, Kashem sheyitziraso shel Adam achar kol behema chayav of b'maaseh bereishis. So this is a famous or well-known teaching of Rabbi Simlai. It says, just like in the creation story, man was created as the last creature. Man is created on day 6 after all the other creatures. So too, so too his laws of purity, i.e. the laws of the purity of a man, of a human being, are discussed, are explained in the Torah after first we go through the laws of the animals and the birds, because in Parshas Vayikra and Tzav and Shmini, we have first of all the laws of the sacrifices, and then in Shmini, we have the laws of what animal is kosher and not kosher. What is a tamei animal? What is a tahor animal? What's a ritually pure? What's a pure? And then what's an impure animal? And so now after that, we now get to the laws of a man's purity and a man's impurity. And so this is what Rashi says. But says the Chasam Sofer, however, V'amnam writes the Chasam Sofer, Adam, man, he's the greatest thing of creation. He's the pearl of creation. Hu b'chira yetzira. He's nezer abriya. He's the crown of creation. He's just a little bit lacking of God. Ayachshav efo buibo. Even though man is the pearl of creation, even though he's the crown of creation, even though he's just a little bit below God, nevertheless, he shouldn't think shehu al shalit al abriya. He shouldn't think that he's the ruler over all of humanity. Mutar lo lefrotz kol gedarim. Betgaot flim nasei blibo v'amar adamal elyon. He shouldn't think that he's the ruler over the creation, and that he could break all the fences, and he shouldn't be arrogant, and he said and think that he rules over everything. Therefore, the Torah places the laws of the animals before the laws of man, to teach us that even though the righteous people at Tzaddik is above a prince and above a king, and a person who's righteous can almost become like an angel and achieve really great heights, but we have to remind ourselves that the laws of the animals are even discussed before us. On the other hand, Hamitzul Ra'im, the lepers who become tamei, and all those who become tamei, they are, and those people who are diminished through their sins, they're on a much lower level. They are less than the animals. They are even lower animals. Their level of ritual impurity is even lower than the animals who are torn apart and killed. And their ritual impurity is even more severe. Meaning to say, an animal cannot transmit ritual impurity while it's alive, but a human being can. The carcass of an animal is only tamei if you touch it or carry it. But a person, if he is a dead person, just being in the same tent can transmit tumah. And so therefore, the point that the Chasam Sofer says is that the point in the Torah is that a person can achieve the highest levels because he was chosen by God, but he also can achieve the lowest level. And this is why the human being was why the Torah places it in this manner, to show that the power of a human being could be such a high level, but it could also be such a low level, and our level of ritual impurity could even be lower than that of the animals. This some want to suggest that this is the reason why a woman, after she gives birth, becomes tamei. Right, when a woman gives birth, even if there is no blood during the birth, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure it's possible, but I don't know if it's possible. But I'm sure it's happened in history that there would be no blood in the birth. But that even if there's no blood in the birth, a woman is ritually impure. So one of the reasons is some say that after a woman gives birth, maybe she has become so proud of what she's accomplished. Obviously, no way would I ever diminish it. God forbid. It's an incredible feat to give birth. But a person achieves something, they think they're very they could become, God forbid, arrogant. And so therefore, whenever we achieve something of such a great significance, we have to be reminded to be humble. And so therefore, some want to suggest that that's the reason why a woman becomes ritually impure after she gives birth. Okay. So now we'll go up to the statement of. Let's go to the statement. The next statement. Yes. Hold on one second. Let me just pause this. Moving right along with the Iturei Torah. Now he shares some Chassidic thoughts, and the first comes from the Tiferet Shlomo, the Radomsker. The Tiferet Shlomo is the Radomsker Rebbe, who's the one we have to thank. He encouraged everybody to go to Rabbi Elimelech's grave on the Yort site. So the Radomsker says, the desire is only aroused above, meaning in God, only if there's arousal below on earth. So the Baal Shem Tov used to say, Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow, that whatever a person does below causes God to do above. And so therefore, God is our reflection. Basically, God is our reflection. God reflects what we're doing on this earth below. And so therefore, how are we going to find this? How does it connect to our portion? So the Radomsker continues. He says, we see this in the Midrash, that whenever Abraham bound Isaac, God would, every time that Abraham tied a cord around Isaac, when Abraham was binding Isaac, in the binding of Isaac, God tying the cord around our enemies who are trying to attack us. And this is what it means when the verse states, would I cover up from Abraham that which I'm doing? Meaning to say, I will not cover up that I'm doing exactly above, just like Abraham is doing below. Just like whatever Abraham is doing below, I'm doing above. And David said, I'll give thanks to you because kitov neged chasitecha, meaning to say David is giving thanks that you're doing above corresponding to our good deeds below, and whatever we do below corresponds to what God is doing above. And this is what it means, says the Radomsker, getting back to our portion. Isha ki Tazria, a woman who will give birth. Isha, this hints to the word woman, hints to the Jewish people, Knesset Israel, because just like a woman is the receptacle for the seed, the Jewish people are the receptacle for the overflow of goodness from God. And the way
And it says, Isha mizaras t'chila. The Talmud says a woman who produces the seed first. That means to say that if the Jewish people begin below, this causes God above to in response to produce shefa, goodness for us in this earth below. It's a very Kabbalistic idea, but this is the way the Rebbes made sense of these verses and translated them into a language that their Chassidim will be meaningful, and say that everything that we do on this earth corresponds to what God is planning above. The Shem Shmuel has another idea. The Shem Shmuel, who was the Sakachaver Rebbe, who was a descendant of the Kotzker Rebbe, he says the key to life, even though we have great doctors, great OBs, great obstetricians, amazing obstetricians, but the key to life is in the hands of God. And the Talmud says specifically, the key to giving birth was not given over to an agent. So how could it possibly be that ritual impurity will come from giving birth? Because if God is the one who's the midwife, so to speak, how could that be connected? How could God be connected to ritual impurity? So he says the tumah comes afterwards. And that's the same reason why we have ritual impurity from a dead body. Meaning to say, once the soul departs, why are we tamei if Rahman al we have to touch a dead body? Because the dead body is the ultimate level of tumah, because the soul has departed from it. So too, why after a person gives birth does that woman become tamei? The reason why a woman becomes tamei is because we said one theory before, but here's another reason. Because when the woman is giving birth, God is the midwife. God is the doctor, so to speak. God is the midwife, helping the woman give birth. And so therefore, after the birth, God has departed. So since God has departed, the absence of the holiness of God is what causes this level of tumah. And so therefore, when God is there and then God departs, therefore the tumah comes in and fills that space. That's the idea of the shame Mishmuel. Now, here's another idea. This comes from Rabbi Charlap. Rabbi Charlap was a student of Rav Kook in the land of Israel, and he writes as follows. He says Rabbi Charlap had a grandson who was the dean of the rabbinical seminary, of Yeshiva University. And my son just told me a story that they said at his Shloshim, and Rabbi Charlap, I don't know if he said it as Levaya or Shloshim, and I knew Rabbi Charlap was a very sweet man. They said he was also the rabbi in the Bronx, in a community near Montefiore Hospital, if anybody knows the Bronx in New York. Anyway, so they said about Rabbi Charlap that whenever poor people would come to his house, he would give them a lot of money he would give to them. And his kid said to him, "These people are scamming you. They're not telling you the truth. They're just deceiving you, and they're giving you these sob stories. They're not even believable. Why are you giving them the money?" He said, "I don't want to look too closely at them because I'm worried that when I get up to heaven, God's going to look too closely at me." So that was what Rabbi Charlap said. Anyway, but this was Rabbi Charlap's grandfather. That he says, all right, so wait, what's going to happen? A woman, if she gives birth, is going to become tamei. She's going to be ritually impure. So maybe she should say, I shouldn't give birth, because if I give birth, I'm going to become tamei, and we don't want to become tamei. Maybe the woman should say, I don't want to give birth. No, you can't. No, you have to do it. You have to give birth. And so therefore, she has to do it. Meaning to say, she has to give birth. It's a decree that a woman, meaning to say, even though she might think I shouldn't give birth, we say no, she should still try. And birth, within birth, is ritual impurity. And that's the same idea. He says, this is his words. And because when you're giving the birth, even though there's a lot of ritual impurity, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of setbacks, Nevertheless, it's joy, it's strength, it's hope. And then he writes, and this is our redemption. This is our redemption. Meaning to say, we're going through the struggles of redemption. They're associated with it, ritual impurity, we're associated with pain, and we're associated with a lot of setbacks. But nevertheless, there's joy associated with the redemption. Okay, we're going to go on from this to talk about the Bris Milah on the 8th day, but first we'll take a question. Yeah. So now we'll go up to the verse that talks about Uvayomash
Yimol Besar on the 8th day, after a baby is born, baby boy, you give him a circumcision. So says the Turei Torah. The previous passage with discussion of the animals, of the purity of the animal, says to distinguish between the pure and the impure. And so therefore it begins here, this next passage. What's the relationship between the previous passage, which talks about the animals that are kosher and the not kosher? Is that the circumcision, that the mitzvah of milah is what separates the Jew from the nations of the world. Now, obviously, today that doesn't really separate us so much because thanks to the proliferation of Islam, there are so many people who are circumcised. But for a while, it was the differentiator in the whole world. And now also in Africa, because they were concerned about AIDS, many people are circumcised also because it's. But anyway, this was for much of the world. So now, what does the Makor Baruch say about? Actually, you know what? Let's go to the Noam Elimelech. We have a teaching from the Alter Zaidi, the Noam Elimelech. Let's see what the Noam Elimelech says about this. He says as follows. It says, Ushloshim Yom Ushloshis Yamim, for 33 days, Teishev B'Tmei Torah, that this woman who gives birth to if she gives birth to a boy, she's Tamei for 7 days from that blood. And then the next 33 days, she has the law that blood that she produces from her body for the next 33 days, she's Tahor, but she's called Mechusar Kippurim. She's lacking complete purification. She cannot touch the Kodshim. She can't go to the Beis HaMikdash, and she can't eat from the sacred food until she completes her days of ritual purity, meaning the next 33 days, and then she brings a sacrifice the next day, and only then can she partake in the sacrificial food. She's called Mechusar Kippurim. So the verse states, "B'chol kodesh lo tigash," she can't touch anything holy during that period. Ve'al mikdash lo tavo, and she can't come to the place of the temple until she completes her days of tahara, until she completes her days of ritual purity. So says the Noam Elimelech, Rebbe Elimelech of Lozhensk. We had a beautiful Shabbos here celebrating Rebbe Elimelech of Lozhensk this past Shabbos. So writes Rebbe Elimelech of Lozhensk on this parsha, on this verse. Bizman shebeis hamikdash hayakayim, when the temple was standing, hayta ashras hashchina beis hamikdash. When the temple was standing, divine presence was resting on the temple. And now it says, so there's no temple. So what should we do? If there's no temple, how do we get the holiness? God says, Va'ahi lahem mikdash ma'at. God says, I will be for them a mikdash ma'at. I will be for them a mini temple. Meaning to say, then this is the Noam Elimelech's radical theology, which is that where does the holiness go? He said the Noam Elimelech's very radical theology, controversial, was that the divine presence, now that the temple was no longer there, the divine presence rests on the tzaddik, on the one who's incredibly holy, like very, very few in our in any generation of the tzaddik. And that's what the Noam Melech was talking about, meaning to say that now that there's no temple, where does the divine presence rest? On the tzaddik, and that's why the Chassidim go to the tzaddikim to be connected to Hashem. But says the Noam Melech, this pasuk tells us, don't think that you're on this level of kedusha. Don't think, none of us should ever think that we're on the level of being the tzaddik. God forbid, because it says, Al tachzik atzmacham medrega zu shel kedusha. Don't think you're on this level of holiness until you complete the days of ritual purification. Meaning to say, until until you spend many days in the purification of the body and soul. There's no holiness without this ritual purity. Meaning, say that how can you achieve this level of holiness? How can you come to be the temple? You're not going to be considered on this level of holiness, of being like a small sanctuary where God is resting, until you complete this many days, a lifetime of ritual purity, of sanctification. Only then can you possibly even dream of coming close to this level of being the tzaddik. And that's what the Noam Elimelech, that's his explanation of this verse. He basically, the Noam Elimelech, if you read that sefer, it's a very emphasizing, very much emphasizing the spiritual power of the tzaddik, but he's saying very few people in human history could ever achieve that level of supreme holiness. So then it says in the verse, in chapter 12, verse 6, Uvimlos, Yemei Torah Leveno Avas, when you complete the days of ritual purity for a son or a daughter, you should bring a sheep, Tavi Keves Ben Shnasolo, you should bring a sheep that's less than a year old as an Olah offering, Uven Yonah Otor, and you should bring a Ben Yonah, Ben Yonah or a Tur. These are two different types of birds the woman has to bring, when she completes her days of ritual purity, she has to bring a Ben Yonah or Tur for a sin offering. And then she brings it to the Kohen. I just want to say, before I'm going to leave this sefer, the Turei Torah, for a moment to share with you a well-known Baal HaTurim on this, which if you haven't heard it, it's very kedai, it's very appropriate. The Baal HaTurim, we're leaving the Turei Torah just to brush the Baal HaTurim, says, B'kol makom maktimim tarim of Bnei Yonah. A Ben Yonah is a young dove, and a Tor is translated as a turtle dove. These are like different types of pigeons. But the Baal HaTurim says, everywhere else in the Torah, where the Torah mentions a young dove or a turtle dove, it always mentions the turtle doves first, except here. And this is actually relates to the Mishnah in Krisos 6:9. The Mishnah says, every instance where the Torah mentions these two species, turtle doves precede the young doves. Now, I might think that so the Mishnah in Krisos gives a different answer. I might think that this is because the turtle doves are preferable to the young doves. Therefore, the Torah says one time and a young dove or a turtle dove to teach them that the two of them are equal before Hashem. That's the answer of the Talmud. But the Baal HaTurim is going to give a different answer. Basically, let me just repeat what I said because I don't want to confuse everybody. The woman has to come and bring a sin offering at the end of her days of bleeding after she gives birth. The Torah says she could bring a turtle dove, a young dove, or a turtle dove. That's a Bnei Yonah or a Tor or a turtle dove. Now, the Mishnah already first points out that everywhere else in the Torah, it says first a turtle dove and then a young dove when it lists the two together. But it's only in this case that the young dove is listed first. What's the reason, according to the Mishnah in Krisos 6:9, why the turtle dove is listed second here and the young dove is listed first, the Bnei Yonah? So the Mishnah Krisos is to tell us that it's equal, that the Torah doesn't care which one you bring. The Baal HaTurim gives a different answer, very powerful answer. The Baal HaTurim says, here it is, the woman here is only bringing one bird. She's only bringing the sin offering. She's not bringing the O offering from a bird. And so therefore it's telling us he's actually breaking from the Mishnah. He's breaking from the Mishnah because he says it's telling us im yimtza Yonah lo yikach Tor. It's telling us that the Torah prefers that the woman bring a young dove to a turtle dove. The Torah wants her to bring the young dove to the turtle dove. Why? The fisha aim ben zugo misabo of the eno misdaveg la'acher. This is an incredible teaching because the turtle dove is married for life, monogamous for life. And the Baal HaTurim is telling us that if you're going to kill one of the birds, you're making the other bird go into mourning. And so therefore, for this reason, the better to kill the young dove, which is not married, than the turtle dove, which is married, and make it a mourner, make the other bird go into mourning over it. Now, this is not in the Talmud. This is not the explanation of the Talmud. This is the explanation that the Baal HaTurim gives, a radical explanation. So he gets it from the Midrash, but let me read the footnote here. In explaining why the dove may be brought as an offering only before its fledgling state, while the turtle dove may be offered only in adulthood, the Midrash Lekach Tov states that the Torah is faithful to its mate to extreme. It will not take a second partner even if after its mate has died. The Yona, however, although it is faithful during its mate's lifetime, will take another partner if its mate has died. As a consequence of the greater fidelity displayed by the adult turtle dove, it's a mature bird of the species which merits being used as an altar offering. They give a different explanation. So, since the regular dove is not as loyal to its spouse, it's only offered as a baby. And based upon this, the Baal HaTurim explains that in this specific case, if you have a choice to take one or the other, you only take the young dove because its fidelity to its spouse is not as great as the turtle dove, which never will remarry once its spouse dies. It will never again be with another spouse. It's a very radical teaching, just incredibly sensitive to the animals. I want to just say also, Elaine wants to say something, so hold on one second.